Hi there, this is Cece Zach, and if you've worked your entire life, reached this chapter, which I call the third, and found yourself wondering, now what? Well, you are not alone. Because retirement isn't just about what you're leaving, it's about figuring out who you are now and what you want next. This is the Meaningful MEtirement podcast, where we turn uncertainty into clarity and help you create a life filled with joy, fulfillment, and freedom. So let's get into it. So today I am thrilled to have Charlotte Sibley join me. Charlotte has been a long time inspiration in my personal and professional life. I've been blessed to know her through work and through the Healthcare Businesswomen's Association. But the way she presents herself, the way she gracefully has demonstrated what is most important to her in life has just been such an inspiration for me. And since she is in her third, and she's had quite a few life quakes, and life quakes being something that reshapes who you are and sometimes creates a new identity, it is my distinct honor to have Charlotte join me. And Charlotte, where are you joining me from today? And if you would just tell the listeners your first memory of how we met.
Sure. Thank you, Cece. It's always an honor and a pleasure. I'm coming from outside of Philadelphia in Berwyn, along the main line,
The
as one of
main
my
line.
friends used to say, oh, the main line, la di da. But it's just the main train line. It was the main train line into Philadelphia, and I've been in this area for about 21 years. And we first met, I think, on one of the HBA boards, I believe, on the global board or one of the committees. And I just remember you as somebody who got things done. No mess, no drama. You just got things done. You had great ideas, but then you followed through. And that's why I've always been interested. I'm fascinated with your journey also. So this is really exciting.
Well, I'm so grateful for that memory of you and for saying yes to this program. So that being said, my first question to you is, what does meaningful retirement mean to you, Charlotte?
Well, I loved the word retirement because I hated the word retirement. I used to say the R word. And at my going away party at Shire, I said, if anyone uses the word retire, I'm walking out. Um, we talked in the HBA years ago about a path, a third career, an encore career. Some of those I'm not sure because it will never be the same as the full-time corporate world, that's for sure. But for me, retirement was it was going to be a different phase of life. I knew that. It would be a different cadence. It would be a different schedule, but my goals in all of it were to make a difference, to give back, and to have fun. And that's what I set out to do.
Well, you have given back in more ways than I could count. Just I can't even count that high how many things that you have given back to so many people and so many organizations. And what I also love is that you do have fun, and you just bring a smile to everyone's face. And so for that, I'm really grateful. Um, as we reflect back on some of the words that you just articulated that you wanted retirement to be, how did you plan for it?
And that's really a key question. Well, I don't want to say it terrified me, but it really worried me so much that I actually reached out to a couple of people and talked to them.
Hey,
I
Charlotte,
knew that I had,
can I interrupt for a second?
yeah.
What terrified you about it? What was the emotion that it stirred up in you?
Well, first of all, it would be different. And change is great. My One of my favorite books, Change is Good, You Go First. Um, that and this was the change that I was going to have to do, and it would be on me. And what would it look like? Would I be busy enough? Would I get satisfaction? Um, I never thought that I was a workaholic or that I was tied to my work, but it was just going to be, I couldn't really see the future. I wasn't quite sure. I knew I'm not a golfer, I'm not a gardener. Um, I
Neither
didn't
am
have
I.
hobbies that, yeah, were I'm not a skier. I'm not really an outdoors person. I go to concerts, I read, but I can't spend my entire career in a concert hall in the opera hall or reading. So what did that look like? And I was very fortunate to have a colleague, a wonderful colleague named Cameron Durant, who was a peer of mine when we were at Pharmacia. And I talked to him, it was probably around March or April, and I said, well, this is my last year at Shire. I could be here another year, but I think it's time to go. I'm just not sure. And he immediately said, bless you, Cameron. He said, I'm going to do for you what you've done for all these other people, and we're going to make a plan, and we're going to talk every month. And that made so much difference. And the plan was really, really simple. The first month it was write a list of what I wanted to do. I thought, okay, I want to travel. I want to be on boards. I want to make sure I still go to concerts. I want to continue mentoring. I want to have fun. The next month was make a list of what I didn't want to do. I knew that I didn't want to fundraise and I didn't want to sell. I'd been approached by market research companies, for example, who wanted me to be their front promotion. But I didn't want to do that. So that was really, those were the only two things on my didn't want to do list. And then the third list was a list of people who would help me or give advice or suggestions about those things that I wanted to do. And ironically or coincidentally, I was just going back on the HBA board at that point. And I remember you and I had a conversation in a corridor somewhere, and you were still on the board. And this was a good time, to come back on the board. So I did that, reached out to people in terms of other boards. I had been on nonprofit boards, talked to some people. I talked to a travel agent because we wanted to go to on safari, and that was going to take time. So that was really, really helpful. And just those few things. Then I talked to another colleague around the same time, and his comment was when he was leaving J&J after 25, 30 years, a colleague of his said, make like a snake, and if you don't like the skin that you're in, shed it and do something else.
Oh,
And I
I
thought,
love that.
okay, I like that. I like that because it isn't forever. This isn't my career. It doesn't have to be forever. So, really, just armed with those couple of thoughts, suggestions, then I just started to plan. And someone has said the universe, is out there, and it was. And amazingly, I went on my first public board, for-profit board, as I was leaving Shire. I was being interviewed for it and went on it 2 months later. I just feel very fortunate that a lot of this I did the work and then started to get the results. I'm very grateful for that.
So all of this information has my head swirling with comments and questions. But the first thing that comes to my mind is that you did not mention financial planning. And I have learned through the research that I've done is that we could plan as much as we want financially, but it is much more than that. What are your comments and thoughts around me recognizing that it is a lot more than financial planning, which is all we have out there in the public domain, really, to teach us about retirement?
And that's a very good point. I was fortunate that my husband and I met regularly. We were with Morgan Stanley for the most part. I'll give them a plug. And my husband used to say, you allow us to sleep at night, and kept saying that we would likely be okay. They give you the 99%. Okay, things can happen, but that we probably would be okay, because that, of course, I was at that point the sole breadwinner. My husband had retired. from practice of law, small town practice, and so that was a concern. Fortunately, we had that. But you're right. It's always, I think, there's financial planning, there's health planning. I was told a number of years ago, before you leave a corporate job, make sure you have your accountant, your lawyer, your physician, get your medical stuff, do all of that stuff for physical, mental, financial well-being. And when you embark on the next phase, next job, or next phase of your life. And I've always taken that to heart and thought that's very good counsel. So I had the financial piece. I made sure I knew I was going to step up my exercise a little bit. I could work with a trainer more regularly than before. So I knew that there would be some of those benefits that would be personal for me also.
So, Charlotte, can you elaborate on the time in life when you started, the financial planning, if you don't mind sharing how old you were, but B, the conversation that you had with the gentleman that helped you the first month and the second month with such simple, what do you want to do and what you don't want to do? Can you just share, what stage of your life, what age you were in when you did those things?
Sure. So I left. I'm going to be 80 in June, and I left Shire. I don't know how this happened, but it did.
You are
I
such an
left Shire.
inspiration.
Right. I left Shire in 2010. So that's what, 16 years ago. So just about 65. And so it was really 64, 65. Up until then, I mean, I had had a series of jobs. And when they actually, this will tie into the financial conversation. It was when I was fired from Bristol Myers Squibb, and we met. That was the first time that I had options that were significant, and they fired me, and they were really worried about a lawsuit, quite frankly. And met with our financial advisor, and they essentially said that we were now with the stock options. It put us in a different place, and that I mean, not that I could buy a yacht or go the rest, but enough comfortability to give us. Leaf and I were both from New England. We're both pretty conservative in that sense, financially and all of that. It gave us enough well feeling of well-being that we could go on. And quite frankly, I didn't know. I was 50, 52, I think, when I got fired from Bristol Myers Squibb, and I thought, I might not get another job. And I had four after that, or three. I forgot how many. One, two, three, four after that. So you never know. Keep on going, and that helped. Now, without those other jobs, I think financially it could have been more of a concern. But I just feel fortunate that from that very beginning, saying, essentially, the wealth, the firm saying you need to make sure that you're having your financial interests taken care of, and particularly when options get, they get very complex at times.
Right.
So um, I I thought, let somebody else manage it.
And tell me, how old were you when you were talking to the gentleman that had you plan that one month? What do you want to do? And the second month, what don't you want to do?
64, 65. It was the year that I was leaving Shire. As we started, I distinctly remember it was March or April, and by June, July, that talking about, okay, then having some of those things set, and I had talked with various people, and in November I was being interviewed for a board, for this public board. So it really, it wasn't that far ahead, and I'm glad, because I didn't I still had a job to do and was still very much involved. And it's always difficult, to look for a job when you've got a job. This, in some ways, was going to be a different kind of job that I was going to be looking for. So yes, I did spend some time, but still made sure that I, wanted to do my regular day job too.
And speaking of timing, it sounds like things worked out just fine for you entering into MEtirement. But would you have done anything different? Would you have started any earlier on that quest to figure out what you want to do when you grow up and live your best life in your third.
And that's a good question. I don't know because part of me, and I've asked myself that. Part of me, I was in the corporate world for 40 years. I was the first MBA hired in market research at Pfizer. I had come out of the University of Chicago with an MBA. There were 10 women in my class.
Oh, you're such an
So
underachiever, Charlotte.
well, but I was the only woman analyst on the drug industry at Donaldson, Lufkin, and Jenrette. So I mean, it was. I don't want to say it was a struggle, but I sort of, that's what I knew was work, and then being involved in organizations and concerts and singing in a chorus and things like that. So it was going to be so totally different without the corporate world. I don't think I gave any thought to it until I had to. Maybe it was denial.
Yeah.
I've said to myself, maybe it was just denial.
So we had spoken briefly before you jumped on this call, and I had sent you a document around the zones of influence. And the market research that I've done demonstrates that there are 5 areas of our life that we need to focus on in order to have that well-balanced approach to live our best life in the third. The first third being education and, starting a family. The second third being, the start really living into the family, living into our professional life. And we have education, college, graduate school, whatever it is to prepare us for the second phase, but we don't have anything for the third phase of our life, the third of life. And so this research had mentioned that a well-balanced approach, which goes back to the planning that you had just talked about. Tell me a little bit about how those zones of influence, the 5 Ps, kind of entered into your thought and into your planning at all.
And I like that framework that you laid out that way. Well, starting with the personal, I mean, from a part of that is financial, of course, that there was personal um, feeling of comfort, of stability there. But I knew that it was going to be more time with my husband, and that was important since he was not working at that point. And you know what? Sometimes karma really does step in because after 5, 6, 7, 8 years, he was diagnosed with pulmonary fibrosis, and he ultimately passed away from it. And I was there. I was available. I wasn't well. I still did travel and stuff, but it was not the same as having the corporate commitment. And I'm very grateful for that. That I could be there for that. So sometimes I think the decisions that we make can be very can have some unforeseen effects.
Yep.
And in this case, it was more positive, and we had the chance to do probably more travel than I would have been able to do stuck, in the corporate world. Psychologically, that gave me a great deal of satisfaction that I could be able to be there, to be present for him. It's funny when I remember psychologically when the very first time I looked at my calendar the first week after I left Shire, and it was completely blank. Nothing, nothing.
All right.
Just
What
all blank
emotion did that
pages.
evoke in you?
Well, at first, sort of panic. Oh my God, what now? I went back to the New Yorker diary, so the entire week was just blank. Thought, oh. The following week, I had one lunch, and I thought, well, that's okay. Oh, I get caught up on my magazines this week, and I think I just, it is what it is, and I'm just going to make the best of it. And that first year or so, I didn't say no to anything, and then I found myself up, sort of overbooked. That came the more what I could have done differently. But that psychological feeling of okay, it's completely open. That's wonderful. Oh my God, that's really scary.
I know you're not alone in
the
this. Um,
yeah, the competing emotions, right, right. But but very quickly, I mean, I found I think maybe a lot of it is just you just sort of pick up and just do. Okay, it's mine to make of it what I can or will.
Wonderful. There's a couple other areas that you have mentioned that bring about thoughts around this well balanced approach, the 5 Ps, and one is purpose. And you were very strong about being on a board. I'm assuming you're still on a board now. And maybe explain how that really fulfills you from a purpose perspective.
I wanted to make a difference, and that on a board, I look at it as making a different kind of difference. I led groups in the corporate world, hired a lot of people. I'm very proud at the kinds of development programs that we had, and watch people grow and develop and become CEOs of companies and all of that. Very fulfilling. Serving on a board is a different kind of a service, and I do look at it as board service. It's a fiduciary and governance responsibility, bringing a lot of expertise and judgment, if you will, to a business, and looking at it from a different point of view. And again, just being able to if not improve something, at least help something, contribute to something going forward. I think because I had spent time on nonprofit boards like HBA and seeing how much a good board can do, that was and we had talked about it in HBA. We talked about it in Women Business Leaders, and I thought, okay, I'm just going to go for it. It seemed like a good thing to do, and it turns out to be very fulfilling and generally a lot of fun. It is a lot of work and a lot of responsibility, and that's fine. It's great. It does give me a feeling of fulfillment and satisfaction.
So, Charlotte, knowing that you are an overachiever, what haven't you done that you really still want to do in your life?
There are still places I want to travel. And I've actually just started with my travel agent looking at Australia and New Zealand, because just do it.
Yep.
If you don't, Nike says just do it. I mentor
Yeah.
a lot of people and I say take that trip, buy that whatever, tell that person you love him or her, because we don't know. And I think, having lost a spouse, we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. So make every day count. And be in the moment, kind of thing. I think I've been sober for many years, and one of the things that I always look for is, one day at a time, and don't catastrophize, and take the action, and don't project the outcome. So I try to do all of those things too, and live it myself. So if I want to do something like Australia, from an activity point of view, I there's not really. Yes, I'd like to spend more time reading, but then again, I it's almost more travel, and I'm at the point now where there are some friends that I haven't seen for a while, and I've made lists of people in the next year or so. Some are in other countries, some are here. Again, just because we don't know, and life is fleeting, and I've lost some friends too, and think, okay, then just do it. You want to do it, then just do it.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that with us. And I can't wait to start seeing Facebook posts from Australia and New Zealand shortly from you. So, um, you mentioned the program, and under personal, one of the 5 zones of influence, 5 Ps. I am very keenly interested in how community brings you joy and fulfillment and freedom. And I know you've been in the program for a very long period of time. Can you comment how that community has helped you through thick or thin, maintain your authenticity, but also help you in this third of life?
Well, there's no doubt, from a sobriety point of view or from addiction point of view, if you walk into any of these 12-step programs, you're immediately accepted. It's not like a club that you have to be nominated for. You're accepted. You're there for the same reason, and it doesn't matter what your background is or what your situation is. You're all there for the same reason, and I think that really helps in terms of community. And having gone through, as you say, some life quakes, I like those. When my husband was ill, the both AA and at one point also a therapist, a grief therapist, just because, a lot of these things are hard and we don't have to do it all by ourselves. And I think knowing that there is help out there, knowing that there are resources, and sometimes I've been able to help other people that they've known I'm in the program and have reached out. That makes a difference. Every life is worth saving, and if we can do it, it's not easy, but it is an ongoing source of support, that's for sure.
And do you mind sharing with our listeners how long you've been part of this community and the ability to have that community, that non-judgmental community, be a part of your life for so long?
Yeah, I've been sober for 46 years. It will be, in fact, in my anniversary, I got sober in New York City, and I'm going to a place called the Mustard Seed, and I'm going there on April 10th on my anniversary. And a good friend of mine, a friend from college who got sober about 20 years ago, he's going to join me there. And yeah, it is how can I say, it is a program for living also, one day at a time, and don't catastrophize. Be grateful. It is what it is. I take the action, don't project the outcome. I have to do the work, but the outcome is out of my hands. And being able, I think, to sort of accept life on life's terms, um, as
Yeah.
as we often say, and for experiences like this, to share my experience, strength, and hope. That I think is the beauty of a community like that, because it does. They talk about you identify with the feelings, don't compare the situation, and I think that helps in real life too. So identify with the feelings.
I couldn't agree with that more. I think one of the biggest challenges, that my generation, I'm going to surmise your generation, is being in touch with our feelings because I think we grew up with the expectation that we don't have feelings. And sometimes that really shapes who we are going into this phase of life. And when it should be our best time in life, those emotions that keep coming up that don't really belong to me anymore. They do, but I'm not that person, but they still subconsciously, yeah, create action that isn't me, is extraordinary. And I just, my dad was in the program too. And so I just feel very strongly. And I'm so grateful that you shared what you did because he changed at 40 and he was just an extraordinary man. So thank you for sharing that with me. And it just brings back a little bit of memory of my dad. But with that said, as we close out the podcast, is there anything that you or advice that you would have given your younger self as it relates to preparing for MEtirement that you would share with our listeners?
I guess it never helps to do it. It never hurts, sorry, to do it earlier. That's
Mm.
for sure. I didn't, and I'm lucky that it worked out. I think also to have an open mind, not to be, not to have blinders on necessarily, because you don't know necessarily what path it's going to take. I couldn't have imagined that a couple of the boards that I was on would happen. It was all through networking. I mean, I had hoped for one board, or just and I had hoped to be able to have enough health and financial support to do it. And that's the other thing, to keep doing it, because I think one of the things that has really come clear to me is we cannot always rely on the fact that we will be healthy and moving. And I loved what Matt Emmons said when he left Shire, that he wanted, well, he went on to Vertex, but he said he did want to retire when when all the parts that should move would still move for at least 5 years, preferably 10. And I like that because we can't count on that. So that's the other thing. Do it now. And if you're getting the Sunday awfuls that with your job, well, maybe it's time to think of something else, to do something else if you can. Um, I think I mentioned I didn't say no to anything at the beginning, and very quickly got over subscribed, shall we say, and then started to pull back. And one of my dear friends made a comment that I wished I had heard earlier, and it was, "Are you as busy as you want to be?" And I think that's the question to ask ourselves during this period in retirement. Am I as busy as I want to be? If not, okay, what do I want to do? If I am, okay, yes. And if I'm too busy, then what do I give up? Because no is a complete sentence. And I can say no. And I have in the past. And maybe I should have a few more times, but to have that balance, because we also need some time just to be. We're human beings, but most of the time we're human doings. And one of the things I'm looking forward to now and try to do more is just be. Whether I go to a city and just enjoy, I don't have to run around and see every museum, just be. And that's one of my goals to keep working on.
Charlotte, that was beautiful. If I was just to surmise, the extraordinary advice is, leave the professional life while you can still move for 5, 10. I'm going to say 30 years because I plan on skiing for another 30 years. The
Good.
the other was I can't remember the word you used, but if you have the Sunday blues about your job, think about time for exiting it. The third was around your calendar. Does it really need to be as full as it was when we had our identity in our professional life? And what you just ended on was no, absolutely not, that we should spend more time being. And I will tell you that that's the best gift I've ever given myself, physically, emotionally, and I personally have never been stronger, fitter, and can go conquer the world because I'm learning how to just be and figure out what I want to do. So, Charlotte, from the bottom of my heart, I'm so grateful you took the time. Can't wait to continue these conversations with you, and please continue to be that awesome inspiration you are to so many people in so many facets of your life. And I'm just honored to have you in my life. So thank you.
Thank you, Cece. Truly an honor and a pleasure. Thank you.